Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Michelle Saga and I am the crafty chick behind Shell's Beads. I wanted to start today's video off with saying a humongous thank you to everybody who has continued to support me during this time of absence here on YouTube. Unfortunately, we had some health complications that carried over from 2021, and in February of this year, my husband ended up having surgery. Thankfully, he is all healed up now, and we are getting back to doing what we love, which is creating. Today's video is an inspirational video, and even though I show you step by step how to create this tumbler, it really is more about the inspiration idea behind this process. So this cup was inspired by this beautiful piece of digital art. This art was created by a very dear friend of mine, Lori Peterson of Lori Beads. Lori is not only a glass artist like I am, but she also creates some of the most beautiful watercolor, acrylic, and digital art that I've seen. When I saw her post this on Facebook, I was amazed to find out that this is actually an original watercolor that she took and scanned in and created a digital piece of art. I asked her if I could please put it on a tumbler, and she was more than happy to let me take this and run with that idea. One of the things that I wanted to mention about supporting digital artists is that there are a lot of artists currently in the world right now who are unable to create their normal style of art, be it painting or clay or pottery or crochet and knitting, simply due to the current climate. But something that a lot of these artists have done is kind of turned to digital art to help them through this process. One of the ways we can help support is taking that digital art and either hanging it on our wall or putting it on a cup. There are tons of things that you can do with digital files, and I hope that this is an inspirational way to kind of delve into that world a little bit, get out of your comfort zone, and see what you can put on a tumbler. So we're going to be creating the Crazy Plant Lady cup today, and as you can see, we have a split cup here. We've got a little bit of power wash, a little bit of alcohol ink, and of course, this blinged out version of Lori Peterson's beautiful succulent print that she created. As always, everything that I use in today's video will be listed and linked in the description box below, and you may even find a couple of discount codes. So that is definitely enough information for me. Let's go ahead and get started. To get started, you're going to want to take a fully prepped tumbler that includes spray paint, and we're going to put on our favorite quick setting epoxy. I love Alumilite's Quick Coat, and I mix up 5 milliliters of epoxy but apply only about a milliliter or so. A good judge is to put about a quarter size on your cup and spread it all over. Once you have your cup fully coated, we're going to move into adding our glitter. I'm using Silk from Peachy Olive, and this has just the slightest little bit of a like pink or magenta to green shift, which looks really nice against botanical patterns like the one that we are going to be using in our Waterslide decal. We're only using one color of glitter, so you can go ahead and sprinkle this really liberally all over the cup and then come in and top off any excess. As you can see here, this glitter was contaminated and I did have to pick up some dark spots there. Just go over that area just to make sure that you have all of your surface covered. So I didn't film recording the epoxy process because you've seen me do that a million times. So what I'm showing you here is just going in and sanding. All I really had to do was the top and bottom rim because that glitter laid down so nicely with that epoxy method coat. Now we want to section off our sections for our split. For one side is going to be our power wash section and the other side is going to be where we place our decal. I just eyeball this first tape section, and really what I'm looking for is the tension in the tape. I know that I have a good angle when my tape lays down with no wrinkles or bumps. And what I'm going to do to get an equal side is take a second piece of painter's tape, and I'm going to lay this to the inside of that first piece like you see me doing here. I basically want to line up my tape lines. Now on the left side of that tape, I'm going to add a little dot with my micron marker. These are my favorite tools to use. And then I'm going to take that tape off. Now I'm going to take a second strip, and coming to the right of that dot we made, that is where I'm going to anchor my tape line. When I basically move that to an angle and get it nice and straight with no lines, you'll see that I'm left with 2 equal sections. Go ahead and choose one of your sections now, and we are going to be drawing a diagonal line to the right side of that piece of tape. Whichever one you choose is fine. It really doesn't matter. Now we're going to remove that tape. Make sure you have your line drawn all the way like I did here, because you definitely need this line in order to line up the next step. Now we are ready to add this beautiful artist print from Lori Peterson of Lori Beats. To do this, I'm going to print my water slide out in Google Docs. I will have a video listed and linked below about how I prepare my water slide and my decals using Google Docs. And once you have it all sealed up, we are ready to size it to the cup. So as you see me doing here, I'm just kind of trimming off any excess that I won't need in the end. It just helps make it a little bit easier to manage. Once you have this all trimmed up, you're going to lay the water slide in the pan of water that you have set aside, and we're going to let this soak until it removes easily from the backing paper. This is super important because you don't ever want to force this water slide paper because it is very delicate and you don't want to risk it tearing. I want to add that this was not a fresh sheet of water slide. I had this prepared for a few days and it was a little more brittle than if I had used it right away. So try to use a fresh sheet of water slide when you're applying these larger pieces. So on this, you see me adding a little water to prep the surface of my cup, and then we're going to come right in with our decal. So to do this, the easiest way that I have found is to overlap it slightly onto the tape, probably about halfway through that strip of tape width. And then we're going to use that as an anchor point. Once I have it anchored down, and as you can see, it being brittle, this was a little hard to come off of the paper, so just bear with me here. But went ahead and overlapped that onto the tape, and now using the tension and that water from the backing, we are going to just slide this off over the surface of the cup. You're going to want to go ahead and slide this and use your squeegee tool as you go along to work out any of the wrinkles and lumps and bumps that might happen from the removal of the backing paper. Just take your time doing this. There's no need to rush it. And once you have the backing paper off, you do have a small bit of wiggle room to readjust this, but you want to be very careful that you don't tear the water slide. I come in with my squeegee tool and extra water from the pan, and I just work out any of those lumps and bumps, and I try to get it as even and smooth around the top and bottom as I possibly can. As you see here, it's super easy with the squeegee tool to do this, and I will have this tool linked in the description box below. Once you've squeegeed out as much water and wrinkles, come in with a paper towel and lightly dab it, being careful not to rub the surface of the water slide. Now we're ready to trim up this water slide decal, and that's where that line comes in. We're going to just take our craft knife and run it straight down that line that we created with the micron pen. Don't worry if you can still see the line because we are going to be covering that up with an accent strip of vinyl at the end. Now I want to go ahead and trim off all of my excess pieces, and it's dry enough now that I can do that, but you want to make sure that you have excess water out. I also come back in and just kind of smooth out that edge to make sure that I didn't have any pieces that were rough from trimming that. Once I've done that, I'm going to come along my tape line there and I am going to trim off my water slide decal there. Be careful because you don't want to let the water slide dry because it's hard to remove, but you also don't want to do it when it's too wet and risk pulling up the water slide from the areas you want to keep. Once I've done that, I'm going to come around the rim of my cup, kind of like I do with the vinyl, and I do have to kind of saw it a little bit instead of just running it evenly, just to make sure that I don't pull anything up that I don't want. Along the bottom, I'm going to find a clean line, and I'm just going to lightly trim that off. Again, you really won't see any of the clear part of the water slide, but you may see part of the pattern. Now here is where I show you how to fix a potential mistake. I tore some of this when I was manipulating it, and I didn't want to redo it, so I decided to fix it using alcohol ink markers. Basically, I find shades that are very similar to the pattern I'm using, and I'm just coming in and using Copic alcohol ink markers. I am lightly blending these out so that instead of seeing that hard line of where that water slide tore, you're actually seeing the pigment from these markers instead. I come in and I blend these out until I can no longer really see those tear marks, and it's a perfect way to fix small little imperfections like this. This wouldn't be one of my cups if I wasn't trying somehow to use either alcohol inks or a mixed media technique. So to go ahead and make this surface really pretty and ready for power wash, we are going to be adding these 4 alcohol ink colors. I'm going to start with my lightest color first, which is Cool Perry from Ranger Ink. And I'm basically going to be creating cloud-like patterns all over this portion of the cup. I do want to blend this into my water slide areas, so you will see me going up to that edge and even slightly over as I work through these colors. Just go ahead and make sure you add enough of each color to your liking and work your way down the colors in order of tone and opacity. So I'm coming in with my dark blue next and filling in those areas that did not get any of that peri-peri color and going in and just dabbing through with clear alcohol to blend. Now I'm going to come in with my green, which is lettuce green from Ranger Inks. And this color seems a little bright, but once we keep working and blending it in with our blues, you'll see that it really is the perfect shade for working with this succulent pattern. You could sit and play with this for hours and getting it to look like the way you would like it to look, and there's definitely no right or wrong way to do this. You could really use any colors that complement whatever design you are working with. Now we're going to move on to the final color. This is a mica-based alcohol ink, so you want to make sure to shake the heck out of this to distribute those mica particles within that alcohol suspension. I will say hindsight is 20/20. I would not put this color directly on your palette because unfortunately it's hard to get those mica particles to stick to your cup because they want to kind of stick to the surface of the paper. So I worked directly out of the bottle. Just keep in mind that it can get a little squirrely and that alcohol ink can move around very quickly. I wanted to just add that in the next frame, you'll see that there are some additional glitter accents on the decal area when I added that coat of epoxy over the alcohol inks. I often add little accents like this to cups just to give it a little extra bling, but it is 100% optional. It wasn't until I was done filming that I realized that my gloved finger hadn't actually activated the shutter button, so none of it recorded. But basically, you just want to look at some of the accent colors in your design and pick some coordinating glitters, and using a pinch method, just sprinkle them sparingly throughout those white areas. What you see me doing here is taping off this area so that we can get ready to head over and add our Dawn Power Wash. Now we're going to move on to our power wash, and we're going to take the Dawn Power Wash and hold it about 12 inches away from our cup to create this really beautiful sponge-like texture. We're going to come in directly with Rust-Oleum 2x flat white, and the can has been pre-shaken to allow for even coverage. Immediately dunk that into a bucket of water to remove the Dawn Power Wash, and then you're going to let that dry completely before moving on to adding your vinyl accents. The first vinyl accents we're going to add are going to be these strips that will separate our areas, and to do that I did 0.12 inches wide by 11 inches long in Cricut Design Space. Once we have those on, trim them up so that they come under the natural line of the bottom of the cup, and you're going to want to trim it below that sand line on the top of your cup. Once we've done that, we're going to move right into a coat of epoxy. This coat is necessary to protect that power wash we did because basically that spray paint is just on the surface of the cup. We will be adding a decal to this cup, so I want to make sure that we have that layer of epoxy in between the power wash and our decal. While that layer of epoxy is curing, we're going to hop on over to Cricut Design Space, and I'm going to show you briefly how I created this word art. This works for basically any kind of word art you'd like to add to a cup. So if you can't find what you're looking for, or if you have a particular phrase in mind and you can't find a ready-made file, this is a great way to create your own. Basically, I'm creating each word separately, and I'm just changing up the font. I use two great fonts from Creative Fabrica. One is called Blueberry, and the other one is called New Year. New Year is a sans serif font that is really nice, clean lines, and then the font I used for Plant is called Blueberry, and it just gives that really nice hand-lettered look. I'm going to play around with the placement and the size of these because sometimes you want one word to stand out from the phrase, and this is a great way to do that. I also like to change the color of my vinyl to match roughly what it's going to be like when I cut it out of vinyl itself. So in order to get this perfectly straight for a cup, once you have all your words done and completed and you're happy with the size of the words themselves, we're going to go in and do the alignment. I do distribute vertically first, and then I come in and I do center horizontally. That just kind of lines up those two top and bottom words and really makes it aesthetically pleasing. I come in and I group these together because I don't want the words to shift around, and then I add an offset. I like to do my offset at 0.07. This creates a really nice fine line and doesn't add too much to the cup. Here is our decal applied to the cup. I've gone over placing decals before, so I just really wanted to show you how it turned out and how nice that really nice thin offset is. Now we're going to come in and seal this decal all up before we add our final coats of epoxy. To do that, I'm going to take just a little bit of CC DIY's Quick Coat. This is one of my favorite products to use just to make sure that everything stays nice and put, and also that I don't get micro bubbles from any problem vinyl. So these last coats of epoxy on this cup, I like to do in this fashion here that was taught to me by Nicole Rowe of Front Row Designs. Basically, you're taking a small amount of the epoxy and using the length of your gloved finger, you are just allowing the rotation of your turner to help you distribute that epoxy in a very fine, even layer. These are great for final coats because it helps eliminate that wave effect, and it really does get you almost flawless coverage. Use your favorite epoxy with this. It doesn't matter which one you choose to use. Once this epoxy has fully cured, your cup is absolutely done. So that's it for this project, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it was more of an inspiration one, but I hope this has given you a way to potentially use some artwork for other artists and help support and spread the love. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. Leave me a comment down below, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. Make sure to check out my Facebook group. And as always, hit that subscribe button. Until next time, stay creative, guys.